So Chad, what's been going on with you this week? Anything new?
This week has been mostly around, but most of my time has been focused on three things. One is working on like integrations and stuff with various teams in the community, and like the DeFi community, like DEX aggregators, wallet integrations, that kind of thing. The other thing I've been working on is the DEX aggregator itself, the swap out DEX aggregation, which has been trickier than I thought it was going to be. But I finally got the smoke test or integration test passing today, which has been a struggle for the last few days. And then the third thing mostly is around talking to Multicoin and Delphi about the THORFi designs, and trying to get some more input after a few changes we made to make sure that all makes sense. So we're waiting for kind of comment from them on that. Yeah.
Awesome, exciting. I'm sure we'll get into teasing some of the THORFi design stuff maybe a little later on.
Yeah, it's Tushar from Multicoin, really good guy, really smart guy. He says, like, I was just chatting with him, I think it was yesterday. We jumped on like a Zoom or whatever, and he was saying that like the more he thinks about the lending design, the more he likes it. It just like it kind of like it's this funny thing of like when you first hear about it, you have this like knee jerk, like, oh my God, sounds like the worst idea ever because it sounds too good to be true. Like, oh my God, this can't work. This is going to be a complete, calamity. And then like once you start to read and understand the mechanics of it, you start to like, oh, okay, all right, yeah, that makes sense. And then like as he kind of been sitting on it for like, a week or so or 2 weeks, he kind of just like starts digging into it more. And the more you think about it, the more you like dive into the depths of like the mechanics and the economics of it, it gets more and more interesting. It's just this really kind of fascinating notion,
Yeah, I definitely want to hear you talk a little bit more about the whole design today, because that'd probably be a good use of our time talking about THORFi and maybe some of the designs that you guys are considering for the future.
Yeah, I just got to do a quick thing. My sister's on the call here. My sister Hillary, how you doing, sis? I don't think I've seen her on the call in the past, or maybe I just didn't notice. But she's obviously a Rune fan as well, a THORchatette, or what was the female term for THORchat we came up with? That was
one was brunette.
I don't know if the actual term should be or will be.
It can still just be Chad.
THORchat is junior neutral.
Exactly. Yeah, we're
okay.
We're very yeah. So anyways, yeah, well, I know I'm definitely excited to always just dig in as much as we can to the THORFi design, but maybe like we can just kind of hit like the sort of like updates on timelines and stuff that's going on, and maybe get through that stuff like relatively quickly, and then geek out on THORFi. And then I already see somebody requesting, just FYI, we will open it up to questions, probably in like 20-30 minutes or so, but just hang tight, and everyone will get a chance to come up and ask a question.
Or just give a comment. That's fine too. You don't even have to ask a question. You can just voice your perspective. That's cool too.
Oh yeah. Great point. Yeah. Or if you don't want to get up, you can also like tweet at us or something, and we'll try to read off those questions as well. Don't
tweet at me though, because I probably won't notice. One of the other hosts there could probably.
Yeah, true.
I'll be too focused on trying to make sentences that make sense.
Tweet at Chad THOReau.
Yeah, if I start stumbling on my words, it's because I'm trying to read at the same time. So cool. So yeah, let's get into the first thing, which is obviously on everyone's mind, which is the progress on the Luna integration and when that is going live. I know that we're at this point basically kind of just waiting on the Terra SCV security team to kind of give the final sign off. But yeah, what's going on there?
Yeah, not a whole lot in terms of like dev, because the dev side of it is completed. We're just still waiting for the audit from Terra. I think it's called Terra SVC or something like this. They are a Terra-specific, security system or security, firm or whatever the correct term is there. And so they're just going to making sure that everything is on a level from their Terra perspective. And then we had our THORSec people, make sure everything's on a level from the THORChain perspective. And we're going to hopefully do that in further chains in the future, although it'll be less important as we've already implemented. Like this will be our first Cosmos implementation of the chain client, so we'll just reuse the same code on Gaia or Osmosis or whatever the next thing is going to be, so that we already kind of inherit the security and the audits that we've had before into this, integrating with other chains. So it become significantly less risky in that context. So we're still waiting for them to review and give us our feedback. And if there's any issues that they find, we'll of course patch those things and then, carry on with it and launch Luna. Hopefully, I'm hoping in like a week or so. That's what I'm hoping to get but then again, it's not up to me, and I don't want to put any kind of pressure on the SVC team to like hurry up. I want them to take whatever time they feel like they need to take to get the thing done right, rather than me trying to rush them along to get done in a few days.
And so after those audits complete, is there going to be like some kind of notice period, like, hey, the audits have completed, now we're going to launch in maybe 3 or 4 days? Is that kind of how it's going to go once that's completed?
Yeah,
assuming they don't find anything that's like a problem.
Yeah, if no problems are found, it just becomes just a flag that just gets enabled. So there'll be some sort of code release that will enable the Terra daemon. All the nodes already run their Terra daemons, then they're all caught up to the tip. Hopefully everybody's already done that. All the node operators out there. I think they have. I assume they have. And so once that happens and everything's fine, we can go ahead and just enable it, release an update, which would be like 80.1 or 81.1 or whatever the number is going to be. I'm not really sure. And then that just enables it. And then once 2/3 majority of those nodes pull in that change, which should be within 18 hours, I would suspect, then they would basically be live in terms of its ability. And then it takes the team's time to create the pool and kind of give it some. I think we're going to put some of our own treasury funds into it to kind of get it started, get it rolling, and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully we'll have like a launch party too. We'll do like a Twitter Spaces launch party. I think it's a really cool idea.
Yeah, that's what I just wanted to bring up to you. I wanted to make sure that there's some interest here for a Terra launch party, because I think we could get some some big people in the Terra space and get a lot of excitement going and educate a lot of people about what's going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, super down for that. And that sounds great that everything's moving along. Like, it's kind of out of your guys' hands at this point, but waiting on that security sign off, obviously crucial. Don't want to rush that. So, to everyone, hang tight. It's happening, but hard to put exact times on these things, and then to actually get it live and get that liquidity seeded and stuff like that. But all good news, the way I hear it. So pumped to see that live, and launch party sounds like fun for sure.
LFG.
Yeah, LFG, Luna Rune.
Luna Rune pool.
Yeah, Runatics. Cool. So that probably covers it on the Luna side. Just kind of waiting on that audit again. Let's just move on to synths and the timeline there. I know that's getting really close. So what's up there?
Yeah, so we finished the Thor games where we kind of engaged the community to fuck around on StageNet, I think it was, to play around with synthetics and kind of test its parameters and see how they could manipulate it or break it or something of this nature. In the end, I don't think we found any significant problems with the core protocol. There were some bugs found on some of the UIs, which is fine. They'll just patch those and carry on. Right now, Nine Realms team is doing kind of a one last ditch effort to kind of an all hands on deck, is banging on the thing and trying to find some, any other issues potentially. We did find one bug that was kind of small and not really significant, so it won't delay anything. We'll patch that later. It doesn't really matter that much. And then I think assuming that Nine Realms finishes their thing today or Saturday or whatever it is, and they find no significant bugs or serious issues, then I think we're probably going to enable synthetics, maybe Monday, for the community. Or rather, sorry, let me rephrase that. The nodes will enable it. They will choose to enable it through Node Vermeer, and to enable synthetics to burn and mint synthetics in the network. And then we'll hopefully put a limit on that to be about 5% of the pools, just to start small and kind of targeted, and not go too crazy off the bat. Yeah.
Is that 5% of the total pool depth, or just the is that the asset pool depth?
I believe it's the asset pool depth. So if 5% of the asset pool depth. I think that's how it's actually coded out. So we'll start with 5, and we'll probably bump it up to 10 at some point, and maybe even further. But we probably won't go too far on it, just because we want to make sure that we don't overexpose the LPs to potential risks. We want to keep it very, very small and controlled.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, that's coming up real soon. Let's hit a couple of these other things. So, and then we might, we're chatting behind the scenes trying to take up, we might be bringing somebody up here too, but let's knock out these other quick updates. But we had like huge volume spike, which was really exciting. I don't know if it was quite all-time high in volume, but it was definitely like one of close to it, if not the highest, which was super exciting to see, just like, which basically means tons of trading, which means, LPs are rewarded, which then means, more desire to add to those liquidity pools and so on and so forth. So, any thoughts, any thoughts on that quickly?
Yeah, so we had like a really good day the other day, as you all are probably aware. The coin went up like, I think it was like 35 or 40% in a day in a 24-hour period, which is, some good performance, considering, everything else in the space was, pretty nominal, like, a few percentage points. And so I think that was partially because of, some macro things, partially about the people getting excited about the Luna integration. There was a Cointelegraph, I think it was, article that came out that kind of was very glowing of THORChain in a sense. And then also, I was talking about THORFi, I think, as well. I think so, or whatever it was. Anyways, a bunch of different things happened, which is really cool. Very bullish for the project, which caused the trading volume to increase quite significantly, to be one of the higher days we've had, at least in many months. And it kind of goes to show that Rune having volatility, either in the upside or the down, is really positive for LPs, because it causes all the pools to be rebalanced, right, for arbitrage to come in. And so all that, volume, that volatility is just going to create more volume, as we saw the other day, which is really kind of fascinating to see.
Right. Yeah. Like volatility is great for liquidity poolers, because like every time like a price moves, then the pool is slightly off balance, then that requires basically another trade in the other direction, and arbing, and all of those are basically users of THORChain too. So all of that is rewarding the underlying LPers. So we like the volatility, and it's great to see.
We brought DeFi Dad up here. What's up, man? I think we saw some tweets from DeFi Dad about THORChain just last week about some of the liquidity pools.
Yeah. Hey guys. Hey, good to talk to everyone again. And yeah, no, I hold Rune myself, and I've trying to think, like, when I first learned about THORChain, I definitely think it was the Delphi report they wrote, like whatever the original report was. And then obviously since then, I've had the opportunity to interview Chad and just continue to like stay involved as an LP. Well, around the time that the mainnet launched, or whatever, we're in this beta, whatever it is, when we moved off of BSC, so I had been an LP there, and eventually, like, I got all my tokens out of that, and after like the exploit and so on. So long story short, I kind of lost track. I've just like continued to I think, like, I knew from a distance that like there's been a lot of work being done, but I have continued to use THORSwap. So a while ago, I had this dilemma. I had some Bitcoin, tokenized Bitcoin on BSC from a long time ago that I was pretty confused as to how I was going to get it off. And I was actually becoming a little bit frantic, like realizing I didn't know a solution. And I was also pretty scared that I wasn't sure if the version of the tokenized Bitcoin I was holding was going to be liquid enough. These are things that I think have been a problem, especially with the wormhole tokens on Solana lately. So long story short, I was like, wait a sec, this is what THORSwap was created for, THORChain, but I went to THORSwap, and man, I've used it countless times now. So I've moved money between, I've done actual trades, not just like bridging from BSC to Ethereum. More recently, I've actually done quite a few between Bitcoin and Ethereum as well. And then it's really just everything that we've all, talked about previously, that like the promise was that, today we live in a world where there are some other, decent tools. I would say like the one that I had always relied on as a permissionless, trustless way to move money, Bitcoin especially, was using the Ren bridge. And so I was drawn to THORChain originally because of this idea that you could do trading, that it's not always going to be this like super methodical move of Bitcoin to Bitcoin, across chain, or Ether to Ether. And so, yeah, no, it's been awesome. It's been a lifesaver. And I've just been like, it feels like the market, or just like the community of DeFi users, like I feel like we've lost track of some of these really important fundamental tools that are censorship resistant, that are truly permissionless, that are accessible to anyone in the world. And so really the one thing that I'm excited to see coming, because I've been using like Hop protocol to move between EVM chains, and now there's bridge aggregators popping up between EVM chains. So the most popular one I think is called the Fund Mover, MOVR. It's created by a team called Socket. It's basically 1 inch for bridging. Now, if you want to move between EVM chains, they're great. But once you start talking about Bitcoin and other non-EVM chains, you're totally screwed. So the fact that you guys are adding Terra, that's one humongous, that's been one major challenge, is being able to move funds back and forth without trusting some, fairly centralized tools and risky tools. The wormhole itself obviously had a major exploit. So like this Terra move will be huge, I think, for creating more exposure to many people who haven't used THORChain before. But I'm really excited for the other EVM chains as well, or for the EVM chains to be added. So like Avalanche, Phantom, if you go to DeFi Llama, whatever's the top TVL behind Ethereum, Terra, and BSC, there's tons of users there, and they're living through a really painful process right now of, they've bookmarked multiple pages for different bridges when they move different tokens. I had a really good friend yesterday who is he works at the DeFi Alliance, and he's a really smart guy. He works with countless DeFi projects. He didn't know how to move USDC between Ethereum and Polygon. He was like, "Is this the same thing? Do I need to like buy it?" Like just all sorts of basic questions. And I'm like, this is why like what you guys have built is so important. You just need a sort of like, you need one sort of like bridge aggregator. And I think, despite the fact that I do choose to go directly to THORSwap right now and use it, I'm pushing on the socket team, my team at Fourth Revolution Capital. We invested in them quite a while ago, so I'm pushing on them to get you guys implemented eventually. They've been mostly focused on just using all of the basic EVM bridges for now, but this is really important that we simplify that process of how do I move a token from one chain to another with the cheapest and fastest route without me having to look like Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with like a map on the wall and strings being drawn everywhere. And so those bridge aggregators, I think, are doing a good job, but you can't do that if the plumbing's broken. And the plumbing, what I'm trying to get to, and you guys, everybody here knows this, but I'm hoping more of the DeFi community discovers this. The plumbing has been fixed. That cross-chain swapping ability has been solved with THORChain. So yeah, just if you're ever trying to reach out to any projects, or if anyone, is just looking for feedback on future products here. I mean, I'm as excited as anybody, and just really think the world of the utility that's being brought forth with THORChain.
Yeah, we would definitely appreciate some like introductions into some of those other DeFi products. You were just talking about Mover a little while ago, and they're doing kind of cross-chain, aggregation. But there's no reason why they can't. So they can actually add THORChain to their kind of cross-chain aggregation, and they can have like access to not just the EVMs but the non-EVMs, right? The UTXOs, the Cosmos chains, even the Polkadot chains one day. So yeah, if you know those guys over there, especially put us into a Telegram group with each other, and we'll kind of start talking to them and explain them how we can add significant value to what it is they do. For free of charge, mind you, and then even potentially add revenue and fund their entire project, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that as I was using THORSwap, I remember first seeing that hey, there's support here for Binance or BSC, and there's support for Ethereum. And there's, in my opinion, and I'm sure someone would be better off putting numbers to this, I think there's been less crossover. And so there is, for whatever reason, I just haven't seen as much of that crossover between Ethereum and BSC DeFi users. But that crossover is there seemingly for all these other EVM chains. So I mean, I personally again, sort of like revisiting all of this over the past week, like understanding that you just hit like all-time high daily trade volume. I would imagine that this is, I think that this is a tool that many have forgotten about, like many of the EVM only folks. And by tapping into Terra, I think it's really smart, because Terra does have this gap right now of a reliable, trustless bridge. I don't know all of the vulnerabilities, or not the vulnerabilities, all of the risks that are being taken when you use the Terraform's Lab bridge to move like Luna or other tokens across, but that is not that's not like a trustless bridge. That's you are definitely putting your trust in the way that thing is set up. So this, to me, if as obviously, like, we've all watched what's happened with this war in Ukraine, it's just a reminder that we need to be building so that anyone, no matter what part of the world they're in, can actually access, all of these DeFi tools. Otherwise, we're just rebuilding, we're just rebuilding the finance world with like a Band-Aid on top of it and saying, hey, look at all the cool things you can do, but oh, by the way, you're geo-fenced out if you live in this part of the world. So yeah, I think it's just a huge opportunity right now to to see those EVM traders come in. So my goal today is to get this prioritized with the socket team. Another one that I would recommend reaching out to, and I'll definitely reach out to them as well, is Li-Fi. Li-Fi is I don't think they're doing the same volume as socket, but that's another one. And then God knows how many other bridge aggregators are going to come out. And then lastly, the yields are insane on my only feedback there was, and maybe this is an opportunity for me to do like a tutorial at some point. The yields are so high on THORSwap right now, or just, if you want to become an LP. And Chad was nice enough to kind of walk me through like what makes up the yield and just understand the impermanent loss insurance. But I think once more folks understand that, like just understanding you're still 50-50 exposed to Rune plus whatever token. And there's some details there that are very familiar to everyone, but they don't. My guess is there's a lot of DeFi market participants out there who just aren't aware, because it sounds like magic. Like, what do you mean I can hold like native Bitcoin? Is native? Are you talking about wrap Bitcoin or Ren Bitcoin or something else? And it's like, no. That you're holding native Bitcoin paired with Rune on THORChain. It's kind of what Eric Voorhees, I think, has been a great advocate, sort of like championing just like what a huge innovation this is, especially the fact that it's working, at this point. So anyway.
Yeah, Eric has always been a big supporter of the project, and he's just a great example of a person who just has a tendency to think objectively rather than, going with the crowd or whatever. Yeah. And that's partially why he discovered Bitcoin, very, very early on when, probably everyone in this group had not discovered Bitcoin yet.
No. Eric's always been very open-minded. That's the key. And right now that's the key with where we're at. We all feel like we're living in a very different world in 2022 than years past. But I think the truth is, you should be, if you don't understand something, you should be trying it. And I'm speaking from a year ago. I had barely used anything outside of Ethereum. I maybe had touched one or two apps on Polygon, and now, God, I use everything. And it's a joy because there's some really interesting novel tools being built out there. And that is, I think, the opportunity now with adding these other EVM chains and also Terra and Solana. Terra and Solana there's a lot of interesting stuff being built. I think Terra is leading in TVL second to Ethereum because they look like they're trying to actually build, new value add ideas, not just copy paste what works. There's some like really, I think we still continue to see more new ideas get built up, more radical ideas being built on Ethereum. And then, I'm seeing them, copy pasted or Frankenstein onto like other chains. The point of all of that, though, is if you look at it objectively and don't take off, any sort of like bag bias, your take off, your maximalist hat, whatever it is, each one of these communities is growing its own, feel, its own sort of like direction. They're like little cities, and I do not see, I don't know what's ahead for us in terms of like the macro market. And of course, there's all sorts of scary stuff in the world right now happening. But that all being said, I think that these communities are not going away. I always used to believe in the multi-chain narrative, but I think it has been proven in the last year, like no one is using DeFi applications or open finance, whatever you want to call them, on let's say like Avalanche or Phantom or Terra or Solana or Ethereum, no one's using this and is just going to like one day say, you know what? We were wrong. And I should have just used all the applications on this other chain that I've not been using where I don't have any money. That's just not going to happen. People are going to continue to like find ways to create grants and attract new builders. It's just that I do think that, and this is another thing I'm excited for, hopefully to see integrated, is I'd love to see L2 integrations. I think that can be, another sort of value add for using something like THORSwap or any sort of application using THORChain. So
yeah. Well, I'm interested in adding L2s as well to the network. This is a question about, before we can do that, we need to make an analysis on what are the security risks with using a particular L2, and do we have mechanisms to mediate that risk, right? Like even something like Bitcoin has risks, right? Like the ability for the network to kind of be reorged and then undo transactions that happened on the chain. And so the network has to have a mechanism to protect itself from such, situations. And so what are the risks of adding a new chain, and are there ways to mitigate that risk, blah, blah, blah. Like all that stuff needs to be discussed on every, chain that we implement as a community to add to THORChain's network.
Yeah. And we got time, it's so early. I think like in terms of like the amount of money on chain, the leading Ethereum L2 right now is Arbitrum, and it's only got 2 billion compared to 23 billion on Terra. So we got time, but if reminder to anyone who ends up listening to this, if you're a part of any community that whether it's an alternative L1 or whether it's an Ethereum L2, you should be vocalizing like how important this is to get the attention of this team of the THORChain community, because tools like that, that's your entry exit valve, and when once you open that up, that's everything. Like I remember writing tutorials about 6 months ago, let's say 6 months ago about Solana. And I had some horrific experience of, I moved some money through the wormhole bridge, and then I bridged it, and it came out with this illiquid form of it was like wormhole Bitcoin, and I was like struggling to figure out what to do with it, and the only answer was to just literally send it back. But that was a horrific experience, and I'm someone who's here to stay. So there's no risk there. But for new users who are like just venturing beyond centralized exchanges and starting to like play with self-custody wallets, those are experiences that just make people, not want to participate. So, the ability to say, hey, if you want to participate in the anchor rate, earning about 20% on Anchor Protocol on Terra, it actually takes about like 15 to 20 steps to walk someone through that. And quite a bit of that is just getting your money over to Terra, versus if someone has USDC, which, USDC or UST on Ethereum is a really popular stable coin now, or DAI, whatever it is. In the future, to be able to say, hey, here's THORSwap, just go here and just choose the network you're going to, and you don't have UST, that's okay. Like you can trade it on the way. You don't even have to like bridge it over and then say, okay, so now that you bridged this, now you have to go to an AMM on Terra and you're going to have to swap that. Now you have the tokens you need. Like these are steps that all of us sort of take for granted, and the average user gets scared away from it. So, it's
just to add to that. Not only is that true, is THORChain alleviating that problem that you're talking about, but we're also trying to do it with our DEX aggregation concept so that it can work across all of the DEX in more or less the complete ecosystem of all of crypto. And so you can do a single transaction to acquire any short tail or long tail asset you're choosing on whatever chain it is you want to choose it from. And that's a huge shift. that changes the crypto community from being these separate little ecosystems to one ecosystem where you have access to any asset you want whenever you choose in a single transaction, single step, without needing to go through 13 transactions as you were just kind of referring to on Anchor, right? That's a pretty important thing. And the other thing you said that I just want to kind of accent is that you were talking about how when you acquire a wrapped asset, like a wrapped Bitcoin on Solana, to use your example, because you have a new asset that is not Bitcoin, you do not inherit the liquidity of Bitcoin. And obviously, Bitcoin is like the most liquid asset in crypto by a good margin because it has the largest market cap and trade volume and all that kind of stuff. But when you take this new wrapped asset, you have a liquidity problem. Like, how do you create the liquidity for this new wrapped Bitcoin on this new ecosystem? And that's a really hard problem to solve. And to be honest, it's not one that actually needs to be solved. That's why, like, we've always designed THORChain to be like a first principles mentality of why are we trying to create the liquidity for this wrapped asset, blah, blah, blah. Like, why don't we just touch or use the liquidity of the original asset, which is obviously Bitcoin. And we don't have to solve that problem. We actually have this massive, liquidity available to you, and you don't have to worry about, this other mechanisms that don't even need to exist to begin with, which is kind of funny to think about.
It's a very, I'll say, frightening experience to go through that. And like I said, that for those of us who are already here, it's not a threat, but bridging shouldn't be difficult. And like, that's why, what you guys have built is so important. So it's really, I'm excited even for like, I still don't fully buy into, or really follow the quote unquote Bitcoin DeFi community. I recognize Sovereign, I know, has grown quite a bit, and they've sort of been like a leader there. But there's a lot of liquidity in the Bitcoin community in terms of like native Bitcoin, and this is I'm not expecting everyone to dogpile here into becoming LPs on THORChain with that Bitcoin, but I mean, just a fraction of it would be huge. Like right now, I think there's like 50 million-ish liquidity in the Bitcoin Rune pool. So like that is that's a lot, but it's not a lot compared to other like AMM pools out there in DeFi. So I guess at the same time too, like enjoy the LP rewards right now, because I think like once the word gets out, even with increasing trade volume, which should obviously offset the dilution as an LP, it's early. It's really, really early. It feels like so much has happened in the last few years, but DeFi is going to hit $1 trillion in TVL this year. I have no doubt about that. We'll be multi-trillion, hopefully in a year. And, that money has already proven that it's willing to move between chains. I can't believe how less often I was willing to move money 6 months ago versus now. I'm just like, oh yeah, of course. Oh, what's that? You found a farm that's earning 20% stable coins? Like, bridging is the least of my worries. That's the part now that I'm able to map, because I know how to use THORSwap and other tools like Socket or Fund Mover by Socket. So anyways, though, I don't know if you guys had any questions or if there's anything else you wanted to touch on, but yeah, just kind of wanted to remind those of us who have always, believed in that vision. It's working. And I think it's really important to go remind folks that it's actually working. It's a really, part of the reason like I bought Rune was because I thought, God, if that has even if there's any probability of it working, that's a really valuable network. It feels good to actually see it working because like I said, I know as a user how badly I needed that, over the past few months, and how relieved I was to know that I could use it. And also, the fact that it is a good user experience. I mean, when I've moved money between chains, other than of course Bitcoin, which is just slower and takes like an hour at least for you to see your money show up. It's really it's a user experience that is on par, I think, with all the other sort of AMMs, except in this case it's cross chain. So that's definitely something to think to share with more people, and just start to remind them, like, stop bookmarking like 20 different bridges to use. Like, this should be one of two bridges, and eventually in the future I'm hoping this just gets absorbed into other cross-chain aggregator type bridges.
Yeah, that's my hope too. I think eventually people will pick their favorite mechanism to move between assets or between chains, and in most of those cases it'll be THORChain underneath the hood, no matter what you pick. That's my intention, at least. That's what I hope to see would happen over the next year. I think we got a couple more kind of things to go over within the weekly, and then we can open it up for commenting, conversation, and questions, either to myself or to DeFi Dad here. Thanks for DeFi Dad to kind of jumping on the call and just giving his perspective. It's really valuable. You've been talking about DeFi for a long time now, and kind of educating the masses and experimenting yourself. So your viewpoint and perspective is valuable for sure.
Thanks so much, Chad. Yeah, you guys have a great day. I'm gonna hop off. And if anyone is in the future looking to build applications, or like, I'm a big fan of the XDeFi guys. So like, that's one of the projects I always think of, like the work they've done with XDeFi as a wallet. But if you're building any tools in the future like that, please reach out to my team. We're at fourthrevolution.capital, and we've invested in about 40 teams in the past year. So I'm actively looking for great founders that we can partner with and really work in the weeds with to make valuable tools in Web3 and DeFi. So, but you guys have a great day. Thanks, Chad.
Yeah, I actually see DeFi Spot in the audience there. Maybe that's a potential collaboration with you.
Oh yeah, there you go. Awesome. Well, yeah, guys, take care.
Yep. Thank you, Chad.
Thanks, DeFi Dad. One thing that I wanted to kind of bring up, just based off what DeFi Dad was saying, is like the very real use case of THORChain, especially with THORChain being complete self-custody. So you're always holding your own keys to your coins while you're making a swap. So, I mean, let's say you're a Russian citizen, you've been watching your Michael Saylor videos, right? You've been stacking Bitcoin. All of a sudden you need US dollars to actually pay for things or to just live your life, right? And if centralized exchanges are blocking your access to trade your Bitcoin, then it doesn't matter, how long you've been stacking Bitcoin, because what are you going to spend it on? How are you going to exchange that for something that's valuable to you in that moment? And THORChain is here to provide a service where you can keep your self-custody, but also swap towards something that is valuable to you in the moment, which could be, selling your Bitcoin, God forbid, but on a decentralized platform.
Yeah, but just to add to that, is even if you could pull it out into, a fiat currency in Russia's case, would you want to? Because now there's this threat of SWIFT being shut down around Russia, which caused this kind of massive bank run within the country. And then all of a sudden the ruble has been diving in value. And so like, if you could sell your Bitcoin into the fiat, would you really want to in that scenario? And probably not. You probably want to hold, sell your Bitcoin into, if you want to de-risk yourself, you can sell it into like USDC or UST or something of this nature, to de-risk yourself from volatility, especially if the ruble itself is like, more or less collapsing. I think it's like down like some massive percentage wise. It's pretty amazing to see what's happening.
And all while maintaining the self-custody and never having the risk of seeing your funds seized or not being able to access it, the full suite of protections that you get just by being a crypto native citizen.
Yeah, 100% for sure.
Cool. So should we maybe hit these last couple things and then open up to everyone?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. So Yeah, just a couple quick ones, I guess. But we were going to hit on the bond wars, kind of being back in action. So yeah, Chad, thoughts on that?
Yeah, the bond wars is fascinating because we had bond wars, was pretty intense in the beginning of the life of the network starting back in April. And because everybody was just dying to get in because it was just so profitable to run a node. It was just extremely profitable. And as we've gotten expanded and now we've gone from, initially I think it was like 5 or 6 nodes, whatever the hell it was when it was first started. And today it's at like, I think 90 or something like this, 89 or 90 or something like this. And so there was that kind of moment in time, a couple of months ago where like there was less and less standby nodes and people were freaking out that the bond wasn't going to be increasing anymore, blah, blah, blah. We had this major problem. Like there was this kind of somewhat of a panic within the community. We're kind of brainstorming of different ways to potentially solve that idea. But it ended up being we didn't even need to solve it. They ended up just the mechanics and the economics of the network itself came through, and it did what it was designed to do. And more nodes just kept coming in. We have more nodes to be spun in. And what's interesting is that the bond wars have been like going up this entire time from that point where it was just, I think the bond wars are around like 320,000 or 350,000 people were getting churned in. And today, like somebody just churned in or going to be churned in for like over 500,000 Rune. And so like just the natural economics of the system is just, it's working exactly how it was intended to work, which is really kind of satisfying to see that happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just to kind of like zoom that out, that is what secures the funds, right? So like
right.
that's like the key to this really scaling to be able to become a liquidity black hole for all these cross-chain assets. Like we need the bond side to be growing. And it's amazing that just kind of the fundamental economic design worked. Like, I guess it's just like, you didn't actually have to change anything. It was, it just worked as designed, and like the incentives, are playing out. And one thing that was cool just in the last week is we were seeing that like with the bond with these bond wars, like the incentive pendulum is actually pushing right now to where the LPs are like extra incentivized. So it's really cool to see that in action, which is kind of the mechanism that keeps the balance in place between how much is bonded and how much liquidity is actually in the network, and then the rewards kind of shift as such to incentivize which side is needed. So right now with the bond wars increasing, it's like now it's kind of in this state where it's like, hey, we can take in more liquidity, which is really kind of the ultimate goal and what we want to see. Back to like what DeFi Dad was bringing up with Terra coming and tapping into these more DeFi centric ecosystems. Like we really need that. So it feels like this is it's just such a good sign to see it leaning on that side, because if anything, that's probably the side that's like maybe more difficult, like just to scale over time. So really cool.
Yeah, the other thing that's kind of fascinating, kind of zooming out and looking at bond wars and LPs and all that kind of stuff, is that just a couple of weeks ago, the total Rune in the network and the pool side was around like a little over 20 million. And today it's at 18 and a half. And you might think to yourself, oh, we have less Rune. That's a bad thing. Oh no, it's actually quite the opposite, because the total value of the pools is deeper. But because the Rune price has gone up in value since it was a couple of weeks ago, the amount of Rune required in the network to secure that much Bitcoin or that much Ethereum and that much, will be like Luna, has gone down. And so less Rune is actually in the pools, but the value has gone up, And so now, because of that price movement, the network can naturally hold more, Bitcoin and Ethereum, other assets, just because the Rune price has gone up in value. And also because the Rune price has gone up in value, the bond value has gone up as well. So it's it's a great thing for the network when you see the price, when Rune outperforming more or less the rest of the cryptocurrencies, is that it just benefits the depth of the pools entirely.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting how there's kind of a couple different dynamics happening at the same time. Like if the Rune price doubles, then the bond doubles, but then that means the Rune side of the pools has been creeping up, and as it was going up, it was actually being sold into the other asset for the rebalancing. So there's sort of this like play between the two sides that's really interesting.
Yeah, in that scenario, the rune quantity in the pools basically halves if the rune price doubles relative to everything else. And then by doing so, by having that price movement, you also have a lot of arbitrage opportunity, which creates a lot of like LP yield, and also yield for the nodes and yield for the LPs as well. So like that scenario is like a great scenario for the community for sure. Even when the rune price halves relative to everything else, and that negative kind of case, it's still positive for the LPs because they just get massive yield from that scenario too.
Yeah, totally. Cool. So only other thing on our list was to get into some THORFi stuff, but there's probably also questions about that. So maybe just open it up to questions, and then it'll probably kind of veer towards it usually ends up veering towards THORFi anyways, because that's kind of what we all get like really excited about. But sure. So if people have questions, feel free to just hit that request button. It should be in the bottom left. You have to be on mobile. It can be about THORFi, but if you have, it could be any question really. It could, or just even a comment. But we can get into basics. Stuff that's coming up soon, stuff that's coming up later. Really anything. So feel free to request, and we'll start bringing you up. First up, I see Marty was requesting, so it's connecting and it's taking a second. Whenever you're connected, feel free to go ahead.
Good afternoon, it's Marty. So, love the previous discussion there about the utility in the transference between networks. I have to tell you that IBC is a dream, and Wormhole is a nightmare. And I think I had the same, if not even worse, experiences with Wormhole. Bridging, but maybe that's good enough for the transfer by the whales and the protocols for UST, right? If it's really going to be about whales and protocols between chains, maybe Wormhole is sufficient. But so I'm a lunatic, who started in ETH DeFi and basically spends my life somewhere between Kepler and the Terra station, and hates MetaMask kind of from his broken and costly past. But for the lunatics, what's not really clear is how do you get Rune now and how to put it in. So in the fervor of trying to deal with all the changes in IBC, and the Cosmos people from, Evmos to Osmosis to Juno to all the things that's going on Terra, we kind of reach for our standard stuff. And one of our standards are, onboarding cash through Coinbase and using Qcoin to buy things. And, some of us do it without looking, including me. And so you buy Qcoin, or you put Rune on DCA and Qcoin for our months in anticipation of this, and then you look down and it's like only available for transference through Binance. So that's kind of like a nightmare for us who try to minimize our centralization. And what's hasn't been communicated to the lunatics is how do you get Rune pre the connection? So that's kind of my question, I guess, as a noob to Rune, but not a noob to everything else.
Chad, THOReau, or from the Kai, you want to do this one?
Yeah, sure. So, the really cool thing about THORChain, just at a fundamental level, is like it's not a separate island in the way that like Terra is, right? Where you have to like onboard to Terra. Like THORChain is kind of just like sitting between all these various islands and allowing you to swap between them. So, to use like to get to Rune, for example, like you can use something like THORSwap or any of the other front ends to swap into native, like real THORChain Rune, from any of the other coins or tokens that are integrated in THORChain. So, in the KuCoin example, and by the way, yeah, like I'm in the same boat because I'm a lunatic too. And when I want to get from UST to Rune right now, that's kind of like still the one area where I'm like, yeah, like this is, there's not really any great way to do this. So I'll still kind of use the old KuCoin bridge for that as well, unfortunately. But as I'm sure you know, like in the coming weeks, like that'll be a single swap, which will be cool. So for me, what I usually do is, if you're still using something like KuCoin and you are using a centralized exchange, then I would just buy anything that you can swap, like on a THORChain DEX to Rune, and then you'll get to use it and you'll get to do a real cross-chain swap. And kind of in doing that, you'll kind of see the magic for the first time, which is really cool.
I think I get that, so like, how we, basically brought in, fiat into osmosis is through Atom. We kind of understand that, but I guess what I'm saying is that in the lunatic space, there's a lot of really good postings to say step 1, step 2, step 3, right? And that doesn't exist for Rune. So you said, oh yeah, there'll be a Binance bridge. Well, there's no step 1, step 2, step 3, that, I can hand out to a bunch of different people. I can certainly fuddle around this, between midnight and 3 a.m. and figure it out. But that's not what people do. They're kind of looking for step 1, step 2, step 3. And yes, I should not have DCA'd, Rune, I guess. Over the last couple months, I should have just DCA'd BTC or something like that and converted over to Rune. But the fact that Rune isn't on its own chain and, wasn't obvious in the chaos of 2 months ago. So, again, we're used to buying a KuCoin, something that we can transfer over from, KuCoin on its own chain to the thing. And those steps don't exist. And if you go back, and if you were there, you remember how we, whatever, months ago, 3, 4, 5 months ago, had lots of discussions about onboarding, right? And how to onboard and what's the cheapest path to bring in fiat or whatever else. And that discussion has not yet existed for Rune. Okay. And just letting you know.
Yeah, no, that's fair. This is actually something I'm personally trying to work on with THORSwap, doing like tutorials and guides and stuff like that. I actually just pinned one. So if anyone is in that situation where you have the Binance BEP2 Rune, there's a walkthrough of actually a couple different ways you can do it, because you can just do a 1-to-1 upgrade, which is pretty simple, or you can kind of like arb it, because right now the BEP2 Binance version is trading for more. But yeah, I mean, ideally, like the centralized exchanges would just have native, but like at the same time, THORChain is kind of like the antithesis to centralized exchanges, right? So yeah, I mean, if you have been dollar cost averaging into BEP2 Rune, like you're not in a bad spot. I mean, you're still having exposure to it, but to actually get that over to be useful in THORChain, like to be able to swap or to be able to liquidity pool, yeah, you're gonna have to convert it to native. So you could basically just trade it to Bitcoin, Litecoin, Doge, even Ethereum, though it would have the higher gas fees. Or what I usually do is BNB, just because it's really low fee and cheap, and then you could just swap that using like a THORSwap to native Rune, or you can just do the 1-to-1 upgrade, which is a little bit simpler. But right now there's the ARB opportunity, unless you were trying to like avoid, like you didn't want like a taxable event or something like that, then you might just want to do the upgrade. But yeah, definitely agree generally, like ideally these things would be simpler, and I think we're as a community, like definitely want to get the education out there and simplify. So whenever you have thoughts like that, let everyone know. I
think you did a genius move in using the Terra Station wallet, right? Because, quite frankly, nobody wants really in this period of time with incredible changes to go do another wallet. So we already have to navigate through Kepler, Terra Station and MetaMask, right? We don't want to really add a fourth wallet. So genius move in integrating with a Terra wallet, So congrats to that insight. So thank you very much.
Well, one thing I'd like to say is that you don't need Rune to participate in the network. Like you can, all these swaps are available without ever touching Rune. And once Luna is integrated, that includes all Luna transactions to any other supported chain on the network. So if we're getting like cash in, you're going to need to onboard with the centralized exchange and then swap whatever you can buy on that exchange on the THORChain network, but you don't actually need Rune to participate, or even to LP. You can just put Luna in.
No. I think we understand that, or at least put it this way, I understand that. I'm just trying to give you some insight into like a lunatic kind of attitude, which is like, we don't yet have a DCA sitting on top of Terra for anything, and neither does Osmosis. Okay, so we think in terms of, a lot of us think in terms of like using KuCoin's DCA, transfer UST into KuCoin. It's really cheap, and then go use KuCoin's DCA over extended periods of time for what we perceive as what Terra is going to partner with. We think there's going to be Atom, we think there's going to be Rune, we think there's going to be Sol, there's going to be whatever it is, okay? And so we use KuCoin, and as soon as there is a DCA sitting on side of Terra, I think the KuCoin traffic is going to like dramatically go away. Okay, so KuCoin is used for DCA and for onboarding, and for me, I don't onboard any fiat anymore because basically Anchor is such a powerfully successful tool to generate UST. And that's the way a lot of people kind of feel about it. We have our fiat in place, but we still use KuCoin for this little tiny tool. So again, great job on this. Thank you very much.
Yeah, cool. Just to clarify real quick. So yeah, the DCA referring to dollar cost averaging. So yeah, I think that's like a general kind of like the on-ramp problem is still like a broader crypto problem to solve. And you're spot on. Yeah, like that's still still the most centralized part of all of crypto, I guess, right? Is you need a way to get in. But the cool thing, at least how I think about THORChain, is that like I think of the on-ramp problem as kind of like pretty detached from like THORChain itself, right? Because really you just need to on-ramp to any crypto that's compatible, and then you can just use that with THORChain. Like it's not like THORChain is this like special amusement park part of crypto where you have to like have a special ticket to get in or whatever. It's more just like, yeah, we need a way to onboard. So yeah, I'm with you. I hope that there will be, more solutions to that over time. And then the front ends can of course integrate that and make it closer to where you'll actually be using THORChain. But it's kind of like, at least I kind of view it as like sort of separate,
Yeah, that's a good point. Like the front ends, because as Marty was saying earlier, that like nobody wants to add a fourth wallet or fifth wallet or whatever it is, and I totally get that. I am one of those people. I think hopefully the intention is, because THORChain is completely permissionless and doesn't really require much at all, to transact on it, which is part of the design proposition of how it was thought about in the earlier days, is that like you don't have to necessarily add a fourth or fifth wallet. That's true today because when the network is launched, there need to be a mechanism to be able to trade on it, and no wallet's going to integrate it on day one, more or less, with the exception of Shapeshift. but in general, like I would love to see Terra Station integrated in itself, and Kepler integrated, and Trust Wallet, and Exodus, and Ledger, and Tezos, and all these other wallets kind of integrate with THORChain, because it's a decentralized DEX that they have available to them. And then when you ask that question, well, how am I going to get Rune? It's just, well, you already have it in your wallet, you just don't know it's there, and so you can just acquire it in that moment. But we're not there yet. We're still early in the project, still early in many sense, and so it will get there over time. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have a few more wallet integrations, especially for the big ones that we're trying to talk to and line if we can. But I think you're right. I think it's a strong sentiment to express.
Thanks. So let's move to Dan from Blockworks. Hello.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me back up. Yeah, I just have a question about the Terra integration and sort of essentially what the initial bootstrapping of those pools look like. So I was combing through Do Kwon's tweets the other day, and I filtered for THORChain, and he certainly has some bullish opinions on THORChain and kind of the value that can bring to the crypto ecosystem. And earlier today, one of my buddies reached out to me and let me know that the LFG, the Luna Foundation Guard wallet, sent I think it was 5 million Luna to a different wallet, and that wallet is every 1 minute is burning 1,000 Luna into UST. And so I have no idea what the purpose of that wallet is going to be, but it did get me thinking. With the Do Kwon bullish THORChain tweets, and then just the fact of LFG doing everything to defend the UST peg. Has there been any informal or formal conversations that we know of that have occurred between, maybe someone in the THORChain community and some of these Terra whales that are willing to kind of put up some capital and get these the initial UST and Luna pools up and running?
Well, so I'm only able to say certain things, which unfortunately isn't much. There is efforts being taken place to ensure that when the pools do launch, whenever that is, like in a week or whatever the timeline's going to be, that it does launch with sufficient amount of capital. Hopefully, a few million, I'm hoping. In each to start with, and then over the course of that, following week or 2 weeks, I would expect to see more volume, more liquidity can add to those pools, and from important people within the Terra community, important people within the THORChain community, and kind of combine together, in a matter of speaking. But I can't actually comment on LFG or what they're doing there because I don't really particularly know offhand, and I can't kind of talk about any conversations that were happening between the THORChain and Terra like devs or teams, as some of that conversation is kept under wraps for good reason. But all good stuff, all trying to achieve the same goal of get Luna UST to be more liquid, be more readily available to more assets and all that kind of stuff.
Right, that totally makes sense, and I understand where you're coming from on that. It just when I saw a little bit of an unusual activity going on in the LFG wallet, it just kind of got me thinking. One of their core purposes is if not the core purpose, is to defend the UST peg, and the value of another external large pool being on THORChain would be very valuable to defending that peg. So yeah, just got me thinking. But yeah, totally understand where you're coming from on that.
Totally agree. The more liquid the UST pool is on THORChain, the more bullish it is for UST itself. For many reasons. One, you have a much more liquid way of getting in and out of the coin, which is always a positive thing, especially for stables. But also, it means that the trade volume would be higher on that token, right? It also would probably become like the number one stablecoin on THORChain in terms of depth of trade volume. Right now it's BUSD, and BUSD is getting like 50% yield or some crazy number like this, which is just such a ludicrously high yield, and largely because it's just the cheap and the fast stablecoin. I'm not sure those people actually really love BUSD particularly, but it's just kind of the most cheapest and the fastest stablecoin that exists within the network right now, and it's kind of by far beating USDT and USDC because it's not as expensive. And because the pool is deeper, the trade fees are smaller, so it's better for arbitrages bots to use that as kind of their kind of base asset, or their asset they start and end with effectively. And I'm hoping that when UST gets added, that it'll surpass BUSD and become the stronger stablecoin for it.
Yep, I totally agree with that. I know personally, if I'm moving through want to move through the US dollar on THORChain, it's the BUSD pool to save on fees. And I do have some runes set aside, just kind of waiting for that UST pool to come online, because I'm definitely going to be throwing some rune in there to try to get some of that yield. I think last time I looked, BUSD was at like 60%, which I totally agree. That's a crazy high APY to be passing up on. So I'm super excited to see what this Luna integration brings for the UST pool. And I appreciate your insights on this.
No worries.
Thanks. Next, Brother Muzone from New York.
Hey guys, just wanted to ask about the price spread on the native Rune versus BEP2 and Exchange Rune. Is there anything being done to kind of address that problem?
Yeah, we've talked about this in the past and kind of debated within the dev team as well as within the community about what we could do to address that. I think in the end, because the peg is only one direction, there's a bottom to what BEP2 can be worth, but not a top, effectively. And the intention to make that more stable is probably just not worth the dev efforts to do something bidirectional, because all of the native Rune and THORChain, every last coin, has all been minted from the BEP2 or from ERC20, so that it maintains the monetary policy of the asset. And so I think the long-term thinking, at least at this point in time, is that the BEP2 and the ERC20 versions of Rune are just there as kind of corrupt from an earlier version of the network. And, the base asset of the entire kind of ecosystem should be native Rune. Because technically speaking, in some sense, you can see BEP2 as the base asset in some sense, because it is kind of lower in the kind of the stack, if you want to look at it that way, which is kind of true. We kind of want to shed that entirely. So there's been discussions in the past about starting to kill the switch from BEP2 to Rune, and slowly over a long period of time reduce the amount of native Rune you get for burning, one BEP2 Rune, you get 0.9 of native Rune or something like this, to start incentivize people to either convert or don't. Convert or be killed, in a sense. And so that once that happens, we can just remove all this distraction and complexity of having like 3 different Rune assets, which is super confusing, especially to new people coming into the space. They're just like, what do I buy? I don't know. There's this, and there's also Thor token, which is another kind of confusing element to the whole, to a new person coming into the space. But I don't think there's going to be any arbitrage opportunity other than people just manually going from BEP2, as THOReau was saying earlier. And eventually, I think we'll probably just kill those tokens entirely through killing the kill switch, so to speak.
Interesting, because I know for me personally, it's limiting my ability to provide liquidity, right? Because I have some there, and I got to weigh the difference, the pros and cons of getting some of the yield of providing you liquidity versus having my $5.80 versus $5.09 or whatever it is today.
Yeah, but the thing you have to remember though is that people forget this a lot, especially in the meme coins, because they see the prices, X amount, like, oh yeah, it's worth this much, but it's only worth what you can actually get out, right? And so the problem with the BEP2 Rune asset at this point is that it's increasingly becoming more and more illiquid, right? Relative to what Rune is trading in the hundreds of millions, whatever. And so native Rune, that is. I think it's over time, it's going to become more and more illiquid. And by doing so, what can you actually get for it? It becomes part of the conversation. And so as soon as we start this process to kill the switch, that liquidity is going to drop pretty fast, pretty drastically. And so keep that in mind when you're thinking about it. But even if you are getting, a 40-cent difference or 50-cent difference, whatever it is, it's probably worth it just to jump into the BUSD pool, for example, and you're going to make back that differential. Even if you just use a switch and you don't use an arbitrage opportunity and swap, you're still going to make that yield on the asset. Whereas BEP2, you're not making any yield on it at all. It's just a pure speculative passive asset. So it makes more sense logically to me, even with the price difference, just to swap it into native Rune and then put it into one of the pools and earn yield on it.
So do you see the exchanges eventually supporting native Rune?
I hope so, to some degree. We've had many conversations over the past with many different exchanges, and I have strong feelings about those exchanges and how difficult it is. Not even just difficult, but just how much red tape there is, and bullshit, and then the cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then you provide them tons of liquidity, and in the end, it actually at some point kind of poses a threat to the Rune asset, because if you look at Binance right now, like Binance has like on their cold wall has like 30 million Rune or some ridiculously high quantity. That's all because of, in part, mostly because of the deal that we had to make them to get listed on that asset, on that exchange. And it just becomes very, very problematic. I mean, if you look at Coinbase, for example, they recently launched a coin that was universal basic income for pets on Coinbase. They're launching the most silliest of coins, which is comical to me. Oh, we need UBI for dogs. What is this? Like, this is what you're. Meanwhile, something that is actually of value, that actually solves a real problem in the world, they're just going to they gave us the reason why they didn't list THORChain for Coinbase is because they wanted us to integrate with their Rosetta project. And if you have no idea what the hell that is, okay, right. Nobody knows what the hell it is. It's their attempt to create like a universal API and for multiple blockchain backends. But what's so comical about it is that, like, at the time there was only 4 or 5 chains supported, and of those you've probably never heard of most of those chains, the vast majority of them. Yet they're adding all these other coins back and forth. To me, it's like I don't understand. It has no logical reasoning. Right. So I find it very frustrating whenever I do talk to a central exchange about listing native Rune on their exchange. It just the amount of red tape and ridiculousness, it's really frustrating, and it doesn't make me feel bullish in the least about the future of central exchanges. If everything is such a it's a pay for service. You have to pay them vast quantities of money, even if you're a shit coin, it doesn't matter. Just pay them a bunch of money, and maybe they'll do it at that point. And it just doesn't feel right at all. It doesn't actually work with the ethos of crypto. It's quite antithetical. It's taking the corporate mentality, and then trying to superimpose it on top of more pure and more clean ideals of what crypto stands for. And to me, I'm just so annoyed by that shit, to be honest.
All right, thanks for the chat.
Yeah.
I would just quickly add, in regards to like the price difference, is that by holding BEP2 Rune and kind of speculating on that, I kind of see it as just you're basically speculating that the ARB is going to get bigger than it is now, because otherwise you, like Chad said, you can only sell it for what you can sell that asset for, right? So right now you could sell. You could sell 500 Rune for $6 or whatever, but then you would buy 550 Rune for 5 whatever, right? So then you're basically like locking in that gap right now, and you're just ending up with more Rune, more native real Rune at the lower price. And then if the gap goes back to 1-to-1 and you didn't take that ARB, then you actually kind of lost. So the only way you would really win in this scenario is if you're betting on the gap being larger in the future. At least that's the way that I see it. So for me, native is the way to go. And I just want to lock that in. I've only had native for a while anyways, but personally, if I had BEP2 right now, I would be all over taking that gap, and I would just be super pumped to have 10% more Rune, and then be set,
Got it.
Thanks, Muzone. Arno is up here. Welcome back.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. I just want to add something real quick, and I'm not sure if it addresses some of the questions that were asked, but I'm using Thor Wallet, and there is an option where you can upgrade your I guess the picture got cut off. I'm sorry about that. There's an option where you can effortlessly upgrade your BP Rune to native Rune within the wallet. I believe you'll need a little bit of BSC. I'm not sure for the gas to accommodate that, but it's a it's a simple way to do it. I haven't tested it per se since I don't have any BP Rune, but I would recommend if someone wants to test it and see if that solves any of the issues with the upgrade. And also, I believe Thor Wallet, it's a Swiss-made application, and they've been really great. I've been using them and I like them. I believe they're working on fiat onboarding with projected ETA of by the end of the year. So hopefully that helps and adds some value to the conversation. Thanks.
Yeah, I would only add, and that's a great way to do it, and it's really simple. I would only say that is the one-to-one style upgrade. So, right now with this like price difference, a lot of people are considering the more roundabout way, which is to kind of like sell it and then rebuy it. But you're totally right, and you definitely can do it that way. You would just be one-to-one converting though. So one BEP2 rune equals one native rune. But yeah, you would just send your BEP2 Binance rune to your Binance chain address in Thor wallet, and then you need a tiny bit of BNB. And just to clarify, it's BEP2 BNB Binance chain, not Binance Smart Chain. But it's like a tiny fee. Like you're talking like 2 pennies or whatever, but you just need to have it in there. And then it's just like one like 2-second transaction, and you've got your native. But yeah, cool. So
thanks, Arno.
Thanks.
Nervin's here.
Oh, go. Yeah.
Nervin, hello. Thanks.
Hi guys. So my first question is actually regarding the two-way bridge with BEP Rune as well. Wanted to ask Chad this. So Chad, like if we open like a two-way bridge between BEP Rune and native Rune, like the volume will instantly double, at least like arbitrage. Like a lot of people will be able to sell it at the exact price that it shows on the CoinGecko page and stuff like that, or it would benefit both LPs and bonders, right? So weighing the cost versus benefit, like do you think that how difficult would it be, or what's the do you at least see the benefit of adding a two-way bridge between BEP Rune and native Rune, and how do you think about that?
The core team has discussed the idea of creating a two-way bridge. The problem that I have with it personally, just as a technical individual, is that it means that we have to maintain BEP2 Rune within the network, and right now it doesn't so much happen. It receives BEP2 Rune, and then it basically just gets burnt. It just gets sent out to the admin wallet within the Binance system, and then the whole thing just gets burned. So it happens like routinely every month or so. And so if we did something where we actually created, a rune a BEP2 rune that's not considered to be rune effectively, because that would require a good amount of code changes that probably isn't worth the amount of time that it takes to do so. And it could potentially even open up some security issues as well, because the native rune asset is minted from the BEP2 rune asset. And so if you get to a situation where that could be kind of exploited in some kind of way that creates more additional risk. Right now, the only way you can interact with THORChain with BEP2 rune is through the switch, and it's a very carefully planned and carefully plotted kind of system. And so adding more mechanisms is just going to create more risk. And then being able to, have some of that BEP2 rune stay in the network and churn to the next Asgard bolts for the pools, but then the other ones get sent back to the BEP2 kind of Binance wallet that burns it all, becomes kind of a juggling thing in a sense. And so just trying to avoid creating additional complexity when it's really not needed in a sense. Eventually we're just going to kill BEP2 entirely, and so having a pool would have been destroyed eventually anyway. So it doesn't seem like it's worth the engineering time and potential security risk to do something like that.
Do you think that when the kill switch is activated and it goes from 100% to 99%, redeemability, I'm just worried that exchanges might still not prioritize native Rune, and a lot of people don't want to. A lot of people are just buying Rune for in Binance and just keeping it there, and there's still value to that, right? Like it adds a lot of buy volume and then arbitrage, and it still benefits the THORChain ecosystem because price increases, more LPs can join in and stuff like that. So I feel like it could still benefit the THORChain ecosystem a lot. But
yeah, that's true. But I think part of the design of the network is that it tries to get as much as a percentage of the Rune to be active in the network, either providing capital, being an LP, or providing security on the node side. And so anything outside of that is purely people are going to hold that for speculative purposes, which individuals can choose to do that if they want to. But it's probably not best for the network's long-term interests to, not kill BEP2 just because we want to maintain, Binance as a centralized exchange to get in and out of our room. In the end, I think THORChain is trying to make the need for centralized exchanges significantly less. And I think we should probably eat our own dog food to some regard. But if any exchange that wants to add a native Rune as an asset, any centralized exchange, then they can go ahead and do so. It doesn't require permission. They can just add it tomorrow. And if they want to do it, go right ahead. And if they don't, well, then that's up to them to decide what they want to do for themselves.
Right, that makes sense. I have one last question. It was regarding ILP, right? So a lot of people, like for example, Bitcoin, Bitcoiners, I guess, Bitcoin maximalists, they would just love to be able to, do asymmetric liquidity with just Bitcoin, right? I was wondering how difficult it would be for the protocol to support impermanent loss protection, but just for asymmetric. Like, how much more cost would there be? Would it be worth doing it just to, have LPs at ease, just provide Bitcoin liquidity after 100 days? You'll at least have that. So how difficult would it be from a protocol perspective to do that?
It wouldn't be difficult from a protocol perspective if we wanted to implement something like that. It wouldn't be all that complicated. But I would probably not advise that in a sense, because what naturally happens in that scenario, if you're saying that, okay, if you put in 10 Bitcoin to the Bitcoin pool and then come back later, 100 days later, and you're guaranteed to have 10 Bitcoin on the way out, that basically makes it so that the reserve is underwriting the price movements of Bitcoin itself, which is different from what ILP does now. And so in the event that, let's say Bitcoin outperforms Rune, and let's say it's 2x or 3x what Rune is, let's just say in a hypothetical, that would mean that the amount of Bitcoin in the pool has gone down and the amount of Rune in the pool has gone up by 2 or 3x depending upon the price movement, which means that there's no longer enough Bitcoin in the pool to satisfy the Bitcoin one-on-one people who just wanted to do Bitcoin only. In which case, what that means is the network has to use the reserve to swap to Bitcoin and then give people what they want, and then allow arbitrage to put the Bitcoin back into the system to replenish the kind of the pool in a sense. And so that's probably not what we want to do. That puts too much risk on the reserve. It's kind of impressive by itself, the fact that this network does ILP, because almost no other network in the industry does it, with the exception of Bancor, that I'm aware of at least. And so to do it for a single asset exposure would be impractical from an economics perspective. But that being said, if you want to earn Bitcoin your Bitcoin, that is something that is planned as part of Thor savings. So you can deposit 10 BTC after swap fees and such. You might get 9.8 or some number, whatever the hell it's going to be, and then you can earn yield on that BTC, and you'd be guaranteed to get that 9 BTC back plus the yield that the system generates for you. So that's coming. What you're desiring, what you're kind of poking at, but we can't do it in the way that you're thinking.
Cool. Good to know. Thank you, Chad.
Yep.
Sweet. We also have Titans Energy. Welcome.
Thank you, guys. I think this will be just a very basic question. Since, let's say, I don't use Binance Smart Chain. So normally when I jump to KuCoin, I use XLM. So is there a possibility that I can just move XLM to Rune and swap it for Rune? This may be a very basic question or a dumb question, but that's the question I wanted to ask. Thank you, guys.
Similar Cow or Chad, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, what chain is XLM on?
Oh, no, it's its own chain, Stellar, if you heard about it. Basically, you can. It doesn't have a pegged smart chain or anything. You can move it from anywhere to anywhere as long as you have the supporting capability of XLM. Like for example, I can buy XLM in Exodus for I can exchange for what I have, or I can go to Coinbase or any centralized exchange, buy XLM. Since in the US you cannot KYC to KuCoin, I just move XLM to KuCoin and change it to whatever trading pair I want to buy the asset, whether it's Tether, whether it's BTC, or whatever the asset I want is pegged to. I can always convert XLM over there, and I have, like, in order for me to move Ethereum coins from wallet to wallet, I always kind of struggled how to look at this. Can I just buy it directly from somewhere and shoot it to the storage area rather than trying to move it? I always use XLM because it's been very helpful in the way of how you manage your wallets and assets. I don't know if that's a good explanation, but you can look into that. Maybe that might help you for people if like, I didn't know the Rosetta and all that thing was a thing. So that was a good thought for the day, or something I can look into. But yeah, if you need to circumvent centralized exchanges, maybe XLM is obviously an entity which created it, but if it's decentralizedly used, maybe you guys can leverage that as well, is something I had thought about.
Sweet. I mean, to answer your question at the beginning, to swap for Rune specifically, you'd need an asset that's supported on the THORChain network, unless you're using a centralized exchange. But I like to think that the best way to buy Rune is just buying the native asset. That's by swapping anything that's supported on THORChains. That's native Bitcoin, native Ethereum, native BNB, Doge, like Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, any of these things. So if you're trying to get from XLM to Rune right now, the best way would be to swap your XLM for one of those assets, and then to use an interface like THORSwap, AsgardX, or another like THORChain product.
Okay, got it. Thank you, guys.
Sweet. Is there anyone else that has questions for this week? And we do these every single week, so there's no rush to get your burning question out right now, unless you want to come up. There's one more question. We'll let them up. Stacking Monero.
Hey guys,
Welcome.
Thanks. Couple quick questions, I guess. One, I heard you guys mention there was 30 million or so BEP Rune on Binance. I was curious what that number started at and how much has been purchased on Binance and moved over to native.
That, to be honest, I don't really quite know.
Okay.
I don't recall. Yeah.
Okay, no worries. Second question was, after this whole Luna integration, are we looking at integrating other IBC chains, or what is the next step after Luna?
After Luna, I think the next chain that has gotten the most kind of talk, I guess, is the Gaia chain or Atom. I think that would be the next one. There's also kind of push to do some more EVM chains, like, Phantom or Avalanche or something of this nature. We tried to investigate doing Solana, but unfortunately Solana's nodes are so monstrously large, the system requirements are so astronomically large, that it would be very, very, very difficult for node operators to support that. That's because most node operators are running on some sort of cloud infrastructure. I think there's like 6 different providers right now that are being spread across, but none of them provide systems that are big enough to support a Solana node. You have to run that in bare metal, like in your house or something like this, and that might be very exceedingly difficult for maybe some of the node operators. So we'll have to see how kind of the industry kind of changes, and maybe like downstream Solana will come out with a kind of a light node that we could utilize that doesn't require so much intense stuff. But we have to kind of wait and see in that regard. But I think next is probably Gaia, and then after that, maybe one of the EVM chains out there, Binance Smart Chain, Phantom, Avalanche. I'm not really sure which one.
Okay, what is the overhead of adding additional IBC chains once Terra integration is done? Is it pretty low?
It's fair. It's relatively low. It still takes a considerable amount of time. The coding of the interchain integration is relatively low, but the building of the infrastructure, building the smoke tests, and then validating, testing, all that stuff, that still costs the same, even if it's a chain that we've already implemented previously. The savings is around the dev effort about actually building the chain client itself. And of course, you still have to build the chain client, but you just copy and paste the previous one and then make a few tweaks here and there. Nothing too severe in terms of that kind of stuff.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that was my two questions. Thanks.
And even to push on Monero here, because of something your name is, Haven's working on the Haven chain client, which is, I think it's fundamentally, I think it's probably going to work, which is good news. Still more bugs to work out and more things to change within THOReau to support such a complex, difficult chain. Monero, though, is more difficult than Haven, even though Haven's a fork of Monero, because Monero has a limitation of memo size of 16 bytes versus the smallest one that the THORChain supports right now is Bitcoin, which is 80 bytes. So 16 bytes is very, 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 very small, and practically small. And so in order to support Monero, we'd have to create a whole new mechanism to be able to put transactional intent in a 16-byte memo, which, is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do. We have a plan on how that can be accomplished, so it's a solvable issue, but it's just going to require more energy, more work to get it done.
So we'll see Haven support at some point, but Monero coming later, probably.
Yeah, Haven will probably come first, and which will be interesting because that'll be the first privacy chain. And then hopefully Monero will come downstream further, along with other privacy chains like Zcash and hopefully Secret Network and this kind of stuff. I'm hoping that in general the network will add one new chain a month, more or less, kind of at that pace, give or take. And so hopefully by the end of the year we'll be close to supporting 20-ish networks or so in total.
Well, I think speaking of Secret Network, I think that's, since it's IBC, I thought if we wanted to have privacy on THORChain, that might be the easiest entry, lowest cost to entry, I guess, because it's strictly IBC related and it's, I don't know.
Yeah,
might be something good to look at.
Also because the secret token is not a privacy token, and so therefore it's easier to integrate with THORChain, because trying to get through the network needs to establish what actually happened on the external chain. And with something like rig signatures on Monero or Haven, it's designed to have that not happen, right? Like a specific point in it. But THORChain can't operate without having clarity of who's transacting where and why and how. Not why, but where, funds are being moved from point A to point B. It needs to understand this in order for it to function. And so something that has privacy by default, like Monero or Haven, that is inherently problematic from THORChain's perspective, which is why we have to go through these extra things. It's like, okay, there's view keys to see the inbound traffic, and then we have to publish the private keys of a transaction, not so much the wallet, but the transaction needs its own private key, and that needs to be published so that the rest of the nodes can understand it and confirm that a transaction took place, blah, blah, blah. It's really like a pain in the ass to get it to work. But Secret Network and Zcash are not, Secret Coin and then the Zcash coin depending upon the wallet is not privacy enabled, right?
Right.
A Z wallet versus a T wallet, or whatever the hell it's called. And so that changes things. That makes it easier for THORChain to interface with, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds great.
Yep.
Yeah, just to quickly add, I think the aggregators play in here too, because in some cases, like the aggregator could be sooner than the actual THORChain integration, right? So it's like as soon as you have any Cosmos chain integrated, then an aggregator could flesh out the other swaps to go through, or even for EVM to EVM, as soon as there's one low cost EVM, then maybe an aggregator could use another bridge step to do that. So this concept of anything to anything can also kind of be achieved through that, even before, like Solana, for example. It's okay, Solana, obviously has this huge difficulty, but that doesn't mean that it won't be able to still kind of route through THORChain. yeah.
Also want to say that we have XCAB up here who is very familiar with the Haven integration. So just wanted to say hey and let you speak for a minute if you have some things you want to say about the Haven integration, especially.
Well, you guys segued into me talking. I actually wanted to wait until the end because I was trying to be polite. I don't want to just hijack and talk about Haven every time I come on, but especially when you guys are talking in the middle of Luna and other things going on. But I actually wanted to see if I could get some comments on. I mean, I think you guys know, if any of you follow me on Twitter, I pretty much drop any kind of information that I can find or dig up. It's kind of one of the fun things for me in all of this and being part of the community. So I actually today, somebody pointed me towards, and I'm not the most technical guy, but somebody pointed me towards THORChain's GitLab. And then within there's a DevOps folder or toolchain, or I don't even have probably the right terminology. Somebody was schooling me on it. And it looks like yesterday there was a Haven Core folder wallet toolchain created. And it looks like somebody was working in it yesterday and somebody's also working in there today. So trying to read tea leaves and doing my best John Nash and connecting the dots, in one of the sections of the README, there's a little line that says create a new merge request. So I'm wondering, should I be looking into that at all, or is something happening soon, or what you got for me, boys?
Yeah, so the Haven team has been working on the chain integration for quite a long time, actually. And we've been working with them and advising them. But they've been almost doing almost all of the coding themselves, which is great. That's how we want to happen in the future, that chains integrate themselves into THORChain rather than THORChain devs doing it. And so we've been mostly doing it. So a PR could be open pretty soon for this. It does not necessarily mean that it's ready to be run on StageNet or mainnet. There needs to be more work done on the Thor node side to support the kind of the differences of something like Haven, supporting the idea of like being able to publish view keys and transaction private keys, as I was mentioning earlier, among other things. And so we have to get that all functioning as well. So I don't think we're close to it yet in terms of launching something like Haven on THORChain. I think we're probably still going to be, at least 2 or 3 months away, or maybe possibly even more. But this change is huge. It's a very difficult thing. I remember I was talking to somebody who I won't name which wallet, but they built a very popular, very well-known wallet, and everybody gave them. He was saying to me that everybody gave them like all these props when they added Monero, because like Monero is notoriously difficult to interface with and that kind of stuff. And so he was saying how he can't imagine how difficult the job is to integrate with crypto node chain like Haven or like Monero. And so it takes a long time to build this chain. By far, it's probably always going to be the most difficult chain to interface with will be Haven or Monero, just because it has those ring signatures built into its core protocol, which is a really great feature, by the way. But it just makes it very difficult for us to interface with.
Sure. I actually, and I don't think anybody in the community is under the impression that this isn't going to take a while. We just always, we're salivating at any little piece of information that we can get, and trying to push that out, and it's good. It's hype. It feels nice to get some information, and people like it. Can you say anything to as why was this created yesterday on the GitLab, or does that mean that somebody from your side is going to start playing with stuff, or like I maybe it's because I don't understand GitHub or GitLab that well.
Yeah. To be honest, I didn't even know something got merged yesterday on that regard. To be honest, I've been in close communication with the person that's been working on the Haven and chain integration, and then kind of advising and helping work through bugs and issues that he's kind of running into or whatnot. So I wouldn't read too much into it, other than development is ongoing. That's probably what I would come away with thinking.
Excellent. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Chad. I don't know how much time you have if you want to keep going with questions, because there are there's people who have been up before, and there's some other people, so maybe we can prioritize the people who haven't been up today yet.
As long as there's questions to be answered, I'll stay on as long as we can to answer them.
All right, let's do it. All right, we have.
Can you hear me?
Dot. Yes.
Oh yeah. Hi. How are you guys doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. Basically, I came late, so I didn't hear everything, but I just wanted to know, I'm a heavy investor in Rune, basically, and it's my main, like, basically, I'm a basketball player, and all the money I earn, like, I put it in Rune. Like, I have a really big bag, and all I want to know is, like, where it's going to be, when it's going to be mainnet.
Yeah, mainnet, we're probably a month or two away, I think, maybe more. I mean, the problem with the label mainnet is, like, what defines that, and I think there's still discussions about what that includes or doesn't include. But I think we're probably, I'll say 2 months is probably my best guesstimation.
2 months. Okay, because Rune to me is like a long-term investment. So I plan on like holding it like a year or two or like 3 or more. I don't even know, like as long as I can. I just want to make sure that it's really going to increase over time, you know?
Well, I hope so. That's part of the intent here is to make a successful network. And by doing so, the Rune price should follow in theory. But I always have to say, like, as long as we keep on delivering, we keep on, shipping new code, bug fixes, new features, things that actually contribute significant value to the greater space, then the Rune price may fluctuate day to day, but over the long term, it should move in a certain direction.
Okay, thank you so much.
Not to give you anybody financial advice, or I'm not a financial advisor.
Oh yeah, no worries about that. Yeah, thank you so much.
Just a backdrop that, THORChain is a very serious infrastructure project for crypto. His vision is not over in 2, 3, or 4 years. This is something that adds significant value to very, very high value assets like Bitcoin. It just creates a whole new way to interface with Bitcoin itself, and it's a very important long-term infrastructure project that's going to be around for a very, very long time. So thanks for sticking around.
Yeah, because I started investing in it in February 2021. It's basically when I started to get into crypto, because I was in Forex before. And like THORChain was the project with the most, it made the most sense to me because it's like a black hole to me. Like every crypto you like, basically it goes into, I don't know how to explain it in English because I'm French, but everything goes into like THORChain. Like you have to, if you like other cryptos, you have to like THORChain to me. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yes, sir. Thanks for coming on board.
Thank you so much.
Hey, okay, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Matt H., go ahead. Go for it.
Appreciate you. Hey, I got 3 questions. Is that all right?
Yeah, man. Fire away. I'm here to answer.
All right. So my first question is, can I put in liquidity pool with TGT at the moment, just TGT? Because I tried to do it earlier. I can't. And if I can't, how can I?
You should be able to. I don't.
And I got 4 questions, by the way. But this 4th question, I'm just going to integrate it with this question. What's the importance of pooling an asset along with whatchamacallit, the other asset that you can pull it with? It was Rune, yeah.
Yeah. It's just about basically whatever assets you put into the network in a pool is the assets that you're going to get back later plus yield. So if you just want to, you're just a TGT fan and you don't really care much about the Rune asset, then you can just put TGT in and then get your yield back in TGT. That being said, though, when you're putting in your TGT or your Rune or both of them or any combination, effectively what you're really doing is that you're buying a percentage of the pool. And the pool is always comprised of Rune plus asset. So you're taking on the financial exposure of the price movements of both assets in the pool at all times. Doesn't matter what you provide in. If you want to have just TGT, exposure and not Rune exposure, that's what we're building Thor savings for into the future, and so that you'll be able to do that and not take on any Rune exposure.
Yeah, right now, the image of the TGT, when I click on pooling, I click on TGT first, and I click pool, and then when I click pool, what it shows is the Rune is the only one highlighted, while the TGT is kind of dimmed in the background.
Yeah, I talked to the support team over at THORWALL and asked them this question. I don't have a good answer for you personally.
Awesome. Next question. I don't want to take your time much more. Next question is, I was told that liquidity pooling does not whatchamacallit, and right now I'm standing on 900 Doge. So how is that not? I just want to make sure that I'm not getting the wrong idea. But I figured that's compounding the.
It's not necessarily compounding. I mean, it depends on how you look at it. And I would direct you over at LP University, LPU. They have some really great people over there to kind of help explain the intricacies of like LPing and how that kind of movement works. But if you put in just Doge, 700 Doge the other day, and then some days in the future you have 900 Doge, effectively what's happened is you've earned yield on that, and the price movements have kind of shifted in a way that works well for you in a sense. The compounding, kind of, sort of, and the reason why that's kind of sort of is because you're always earning yield on your LP position, including when your LP position increases. And so it's only not compounding when you put up $500 and you earn yield on $500 and you make $30 later, but you're still earning yield on the $500. In THORChain's case, because you're earning yield on the $500 and then the $530 later, and then the $560 some point for that, technically you can kind of consider it to be compounding, although I'm not an accountant by any stretch of imagination. But it's a kind of an interesting question to raise.
Also, Matt, one thing just to point out is that you've been in the liquidity pools for a couple of days, and you haven't seen that's about like a 30% increase, like 500 Doge to 700 Doge, and a lot of that that's completely due to Rune increasing in price. So your position in the liquidity pools is always balanced between the two assets. So if Doge stays flat or goes down while Rune goes up, you're effectively selling Rune for Doge to balance out the 50-50 split of your position. So if you look, you have less Rune than before, but you've gained more Doge. So it's good to find a pool of two assets that you're very comfortable with and want to hold together, and don't mind trading one for the other in circumstances where they have big moves against each other, like a 30% move of Rune over Doge in the past couple of days.
All right, I appreciate. Go ahead, sir.
Sorry.
Sorry. Thanks. You can go. MDZEJ.
MJ, yeah. Hi there. I would like to just ask one quick question. I believe, is there any plan for integration with Layer 2 Ethereum?
Plans for doing it at this time, but I would think, or I would hope that would happen at some point into the future. Which L2s, I don't really know. I don't have a clear sense of which ones would be valuable, whether it be Polygon or Optimism or Arbitrum or any of these things. At some point that will be evaluated by the dev team as well as the community to understand what is the one that makes the most sense. But yeah, THORChain can interface with L2s, L1s, side chains, pretty much anything.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and I would just add, it's looking like there would be a low gas EVM L1 before that. So like Avalanche, FTM, those are looking like potentially some of the next chains to be integrated. So, who knows on timeline exactly, but that's coming, which is kind of similar.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, man. We also have, let's get Den and then Marty up here real quick.
Yeah, hey everyone, thanks for having me back up. I know we talk a lot about THORFi on these spaces, but one thing, so obviously the synths are coming, and then we'll be able to incorporate the multi-chain collateral lending as well as the Thor Saver. But one thing I just don't think what I've heard as much about is the composites. So obviously with THORChain and the liquidity pools, you have that one token to Rune structure, and it looks like the composites will give you that n number of tokens paired with Rune structure, which sort of gives you this ability to make ETF like liquidity pools. And that's something I'm really curious about, if that plan's kind of been finalized, or if that's just a little bit further down the road. Because I think the concept of being able to have a liquidity pool with, maybe the 5 deepest stable coins on THORChain, or something a little more interesting, like maybe the top 3 largest assets on the network by market cap. I think that gives a really interesting structure to what's the potentials of THORChain. So I'm just curious if that's still in the plans or if that's a little further down the road.
Yeah, good question. It kind of fell off the burner in some sense, the idea of it. I just wasn't confident of how valuable that was within the ecosystem. I mean, I think that what's most valuable is driving the pools to become deeper and have like more trade volume and like that kind. But that's kind of priority number 1 in the matter of speaking. And THORFi is all designed to help further that in a major sense. Composites is an idea we kind of threw around about a year ago as a potential to create this kind of index-like thing like you were referring to. And what's interesting is that the THORUSD design that we're going to be dropping at some point can be re-implemented to do, a BDC design, Thor.BDC, which is basically, it could be Bitcoin plus WBDC plus RUNEBASE, blah, 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 whatever, on multiple chains across multiple ecosystems all coming together to create an index on Bitcoin, as THORUSD is an index on stables. And so could you create an index that's on DeFi tokens, or an index that's on, the top 10 deepest pools or 5 deepest pools or whatever? You could. It's a little bit different. The mechanism is a little bit different because the pricing needs to be set differently, but in theory, that's certainly possible. And so I think once we actually build THORUSD and potentially the THORBDC and THORF and, this kind of stuff, the ability to create a composite like you're talking about becomes a lot easier, a lot lower hanging fruit in the matter of speaking. But I still don't know if the community would love to see this or not. If this is going to be a heavily utilized feature, or something that nobody really utilizes all that much.
Right. That makes sense. And that kind of sequence of events, or that ordering, I also do think that is a smart plan as well, just considering, something like these composites and creating indexes is sort of like a fancy bells and whistles kind of thing, it feels like. Whereas, creating synthetic assets, maybe a Thor stablecoin and borrowing and lending platform as well, those kind of seem like, more liquidity driving events. So yeah, that's awesome. And I'm glad to hear that's still kind of in the plans, but maybe a little further down the road. Because I think, personally, I find that super intriguing and would love to kind of dive into what the implications of that could be. But yeah, it's also good to hear that, we're focusing first on building out a strong network. So thanks for shedding a little light in that corner.
Yeah, no worries. I think in terms of THORFi, the kind of order of operations as it sits today, at least in my head, is that the first thing built would be THORUSD. And then the next thing would be the lending protocol, because the lending requires THORUSD. And then after the lending will be the savers, Thor Savings, which requires lending for Thor Savings to function. And then once you've built those 3 things, which is kind of the major kind of V1, the first iteration of THORFi, we can possibly get into, THORFi V2, which might include what you're talking about, composites or other kind of primitives, maybe even like we were discussing the other day, the concept of being able to short the network economically grow in a sense. So like, there's more things that can be built after V1. And composites being one, shorting is another idea, all sorts of stuff that's theoretically possible. The question becomes, what is valuable? What actually drives, value to the Rune token, value to the network? And that becomes a pretty in-depth conversation.
Right on, Chad. Wow, THORChain V2. I didn't think I'd get more bullish, and here we are. I appreciate it, Chad. Take care.
You're welcome, brother.
Okay, thanks for letting me talk again. So I'm a big fan of Haven and a big miner of Haven. Trying to get to 1% of the overall pool mining. Not pool mining, but Haven mining. So the distinction for Haven for me is, obviously you have the ring, but it has enough space to like, unlike Monero. But the thing that's most interesting to me is a privacy, USD, XUSD, okay? Because as we've seen, and it will only continue to grow, the issue of privacy under different situations, whether it's the Ukraine or Canada or pick your favorite place. My favorite places are generally Africa, where I spend my time. Having a full privacy US dollar equivalent is extremely interesting. And Secret doesn't get us that, obviously. It gets us other things, but it doesn't get us a full private USD. So
I think it does actually.
Only on secret.
What do you mean? What do you mean only on secret?
I mean, I don't think I'm going to be able to. I think from my understanding of their tech, okay, in terms of default and non-default, is that I'm not going to have a secret US. Okay, so
right.
And as you're well aware, any stable coin is difficult, and theirs is particularly difficult in terms of their design. If you're into like this multi-basket, multi-reflective, they've really picked a hard thing. And I'm not saying that Terra's picked an easy thing, but certainly the people over on the shade side of the house have picked a very, very hard thing. But again, going back to XUSD, having a UST, XUSD pool, is that kind of in the plans here? That's kind of another question.
Yeah, I would actually encourage that because for multitude of reasons. One, XUSD is an interesting asset, and to have access to this network is obviously a positive thing. And within the THORUSD design, having more stable coins on the network, it just makes THORUSD stronger as a stable coin itself. It makes it actually more secure the more stable coins we add to the network. So let's bring on XUSD, let's bring on UST, let's bring on, blah, 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 whatever else out there, just to further cement the security and the safetiness of THORUSD.
Right. And again, from my view is that, XUSD is this potential dark horse with, which takes, a couple of other national operations to happen. And all of a sudden people are interested in full privacy kind of USD for something that actually works. And it'd be great to have a place to go, which would be you kind of pumping from, the Terra $36 billion worth of UST that they want to mint this year. But again, I'm super happy to hear that you guys are working on this and following it as intently as I can. Thank you.
Yeah, I think having XUSD would be interesting because with THORChain, so UST itself is trying to be a payment asset, a way to do payments, and maybe that will happen at some point in the future. I hope it does. In XUSD, you could hold your assets or your stables in XUSD theoretically, and then when you want to pay to buy, a hot dog someplace or whatever, you can just swap your XUSD to UST and pay the hot dog stand, whatever it is you owe, $1 for a hot dog, whatever the hell it is. And so by doing so, you basically maintain your privacy. So that guy running the hot dog stand never sees your actual wallet or how much money you have or any of these things. And that's a very kind of important aspect for a lot of people who want privacy in their lives.
Just to chime in real quick on this, and I'm kind of a noob when it comes to the privacy stuff and learning, but as far as I would understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but like as soon as something like a Haven was integrated, you could go from say UST to Haven to like another Haven wallet and then to back through THORChain to a fresh UST wallet. Right. Or Terra wallet. So, there's like really interesting privacy implications like for really all the chains connected with THORChain as soon as there's any sort of privacy coin. So I just want to throw that in.
That's true. But it's not quite that simple because if you take 100 BTC and you swap it into, Haven or 100 BTC is a lot, but just one BTC, whatever you want, or government agency that has 3 characters in its name, could probably decipher that pretty easily, right? And I actually give more credence to, the NSA or the FBI or whatever the hell it is that like privacy coins probably are not as private as people think that they are. I think the governments are probably very smart at this. They're very good at this kind of thing. And so they could probably decode what's happening on most of these privacy chains, if not all of them, at least to a high degree, not to necessarily 100% degree, but at least to a high degree. That's probably true. Just because they're very, they're some of the smartest people in the world working on this kind of stuff. I don't throw it past them. So if you are going to do something like that, we want to do it kind of smartly and wait some time period and take out partial amount of that BTC, not do the full amount, and you randomly number generate how many BTC you're going to pull out. And from the one you're going to do, okay, I'm going to do randomly generate 0.3457286, BTC or something, like that, just to kind of further give yourself some kind of protection, for privacy protection. But that's going to be always like the struggle with privacy, is that like you're trying to maintain your privacy, but you'll never know whether or not you actually are maintaining your privacy, whether or not governments are actually able to decipher your transactions from other people's and actually know what you're transacting. And that's going to be a difficult thing for the community for sure.
For sure. Great point. Yeah, I had thought of that. And I guess it does kind of solve like the hot dog example though, right? Because like, say you sent one BTC over and then you just sent like, a few $100 to a fresh Terra wallet or something like that. Like most likely the hot dog stand guy isn't going to be too concerned with that or whatever. But that's good to add for sure. That clarifies it.
I think the hot dog solution is going to be available on Terra within, 30 to 60 days. It's just going to be done through mixers, which has been the classic Bitcoin pre 3-letter name, organization, thinking that would work. But it's enough to work against the hot dog guy, right? Do a mixer, don't really know where the origination of the wallet was for, another wallet, and, we're fine dealing with the hot dog guy.
Yeah, that'd be interesting, because it'd be interesting to see what happens with that, because is it possible that Do Kwon's going to get served another letter from the SEC about revealing information or asking them to log KYC, blah blah blah, whatever? That could happen one day. I don't know. They've already been served for Mirror Protocol, but maybe one day they'll be served for that as well. It's possible.
But again, I think the mixer thing's going to come from a third party. I mean, it's not going to come from.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yes, so I think the mixer guy, I can't remember. I think he's from Malaysia. So good luck. You're right.
Well, now that I know he's from Malaysia, now it's limited the search space for this guy.
The guy who sells hot dogs for $1 in Malaysia. All right. Do your own fucking research. Welcome to the stage.
How's it going? I guess thanks. I guess my only question is, maybe it's a group of questions, but it has to do with cold storage. And is there a wallet? Is there support that's in development, or do you have to use what would it be, like Rune ERC20 onto one of the wallets that does ERC20 tokens, or what's in the pipeline for some kind of cold storage? Maybe it already exists. I don't know.
Go ahead, THOReau.
Yeah, I can take this. So for Rune itself, so there's native THORChain Rune, there's BEP2 Binance Rune, and there's ERC20 Ethereum Rune. You can actually store all three of those on a ledger. So it's just different apps, right? So if you have native THORChain Rune, it's just the THORChain app, or BEP2 Rune you could store on the Binance app, or ERC20 Rune you could store on the Ethereum app. So I would definitely recommend going with the native THORChain. We kind of talked about that earlier, and then you can even you can use that you can use that for your swaps, for your liquidity pooling, connecting to interfaces like THORSwap or XDeFi. Not all the chains though necessarily are on all these interfaces, so you kind of have to look at each one and which has implemented ledger support. I think XDeFi is rolling out the UTXO ones really soon, but it's already on THORSwap. So for example, you can do you can connect THORChain ledger to THORSwap, and then connect that with your BTC ledger to do a swap. So that's already that's already here available now. So yeah.
Thank you.
For sure. You can bring back Zab and Nervin.
Hey guys.
Hey.
So I had a question about the THORUSD. Once it's implemented, would we be able to LP Bitcoin with THORUSD as well?
We talked about that idea, and the benefit of that idea for anybody who's listening is that you can LP without Rune exposure and have a stablecoin exposure instead, which might be more tantalizing for some Bitcoin maxis out there in a sense. But then we kind of decided against that.
Sorry about that, guys. I lost connection a second ago. It's been chopping in and out. Just something you guys were talking about earlier. So into one of you guys called on or Twitter Spaces, and you guys were talking about the maintain. You said something along those lines. So theoretically, XUSD being on THORChain, if that peg breaks, arbors would swoop in to pick that back up, right? Because essentially they're getting everything else cheaper. Would that be correct in saying?
Yeah. So to your second question first, yes. If XUSD is added to THORChain, the other assets on THORChain help to maintain Haven, right? XUSD rather. So like the very fact that all these different pools, what we call anchor pools for the stables, USD stables, exists, that creates an opportunity to arbitrage those things, at least within the THORChain network. And so you can acquire them externally on some other chain, some other asset, and then swap them in and then be able to profit from that scenario. So it actually does help the other pegs as well. Obviously, if the peg system fails, that's different, and that'll cause some interesting trading happening on THORChain. But the THORUSD asset would still maintain its peg, no problem. If one or two of the stables lose their peg in some sort of black swan event. And to your first question, I can even do you one better. Is you don't even need a hot wallet on Terra, technically speaking, because you can just store your stables in XUSD, for example, and then when you want to pay the hot dog guy, he just gives you his Terra address for the UST, and you just send directly to him. And so you don't even need to actually hold UST or even hold a Terra wallet at any given moment or time at all. And you can just, in one transaction, send him XUSD, and then he receives UST on the other side.
Sick. Thank you.
That's going to be great for imagine a scenario in the future. I kind of like this idea of Amazon creates Amazon coin. And by doing so, if you buy something with Amazon coin, they don't have to pay the MasterCard or Visa charges, which is typically 2%. And so they might say, hey, buy this TV with Amazon coin and you'll get, 1% off your purchase because they're saving money and you're saving money in that case. And then, but you don't have an Amazon coin, but you want to participate because you want to buy this one TV once, but you don't want to go through the process of creating a wallet and acquiring Amazon coin, blah, 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 all these processes. And so instead you can say, oh, I have Bitcoin, I'll just pay with Bitcoin. But Amazon's receiving Amazon coin in the end. So, but you didn't go through the extra headache of trying to figure out where to get a wallet and then all that kind of craziness, which you probably don't want to do. It's much more efficient to say, hey, I have XUSD, I want to buy this TV on Amazon with Amazon coin. There you go. Done. Complete.
Cool. Last two people that are up here, we have Nervin and then Moonkin.
Cool. So hi guys, good to be back. Yeah, just I was thinking. So I kind of know about the bonding of Rune is 3 times to the
every pool is 1-to-1 asset to Rune, right? So for every $1 of Bitcoin, that keeps the 50-50. Then you just need to find that number. What is the non-Rune liquidity, which you could figure out on a lot of various dashboards, even on THORSwap, they have it, or kind of blanking out on the other dashboards, THORChain Live. So you could get it there, and then you would just do 3x that value is basically the floor market cap of all of Rune. So then you would divide by the circulating supply to figure out, the price per Rune. But that's just the floor deterministic value. Then the other part to look at would be what is the speculative premium above that, and that can fluctuate, just because that's kind of just set by the market. But this deterministic price, at least how I think about it, is it's almost like the 0 point for Rune in a way. You could sort of argue it, but then there's speculation above that. So that's been anywhere from a 3x to a 10x or something like that. I think it's been floating mostly around a 5x, at least over the last few months. But you can kind of use that as a baseline, and then factor in what would it be if it dropped to a 2x? What would it be if it went up to a 20x? Depending on just market conditions and stuff like that. And then you can also kind of use this model to kind of create scenarios where you consider in 2024, if Bitcoin is this price, if everything else is that price, if THORChain captures X% of that, you can really extrapolate out what would be the market cap of Rune at these different valuations of these other cryptos and how much it brings in. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys. That's helpful. I'll check out the THORChain live dashboard. Yeah. Thanks.
THORChain.live has a great dashboard that has awesome analytics and charts, especially for historical data, which is going to be very useful to look at. And I'm sure, you look at the dashboard a year from today, and there's going to be a stark contrast in all the charts. If you can look at it from the inception of like the real THORChain multi-chain chaosnet last April. You could look at the stats from then until today and see how much it's really grown. You can see how many fees have been accrued each day by LPs, like all statistics about the pools. And it's just a very useful dashboard. So congrats to whoever made that, because it's pretty fantastic. It also says the current deterministic price of Rune, and the speculative multiplier, things about nodes and whatnot. But if there's no more questions, I guess we can wrap up here. This is a very good space. We do these every single week, so this is the best time to ask the questions that you need to the core development team make your concerns heard, get your questions answered, and thanks for coming on, everybody.
Yeah, and also if you popped in late, they're always recorded. And again, we'll do it again. We'll do it again next Friday.
If there's things that you want to see in this community, like, this is a good place to make your like real voice heard about what it is that you want to see, what's going on here, and answer the concerns that you have. And there's a lot of other places to do that too. Like LP University is a great place to go to learn about liquidity pooling and the implications of that. To make sure you're knowledgeable before you actually put your money into something you might not understand, as well as like THORSwap Discord is very good for getting technical support for any errors or something you might face. So, all right, thanks everyone. This is Familiar Cow. It's good talking to everybody. We will catch you next week.
Take care, guys.